So I have a problem. Every winter, I don't run as much as I should because I struggle running in the winter conditions here in Denver, Colorado. But the other big reason why I'm typically not in as good shape in the wintertime is because I can't do as much cross training. And so my base fitness, my overall aerobic endurance kind of falters in the winter months. But I have a plan. The thing that I love about periods of time when you're not specifically training for a race, it's just such a great opportunity to build your aerobic metabolism and your endurance. Now, my problem is that I usually just can't run as much in the wintertime as when it's nicer outside. The weather conditions aren't as great, and I just find myself being more inconsistent than usual. But I have a plan. I have a two-part plan to build the biggest base that I have in recent years this winter. And so my two-part plan is, number one, I'm actually gonna get a gym membership so I have access to a treadmill. I don't really have the space for a treadmill right now, so I'm gonna get a gym membership at like the local rec center here in Denver. So I'll be able to get in not only all of my treadmill runs when the weather's terrible, but I'll have access to a much better well-stocked gym than I do at home. Now, the other strategy that I have is a little bit more interesting. What I'm gonna do is layer on more cross training than I have in a very, very long time to build the biggest base possible. Because the amazing thing about base training is that it's fairly general. This is not a race-specific phase of training. And in our previous conversation about the off season, maybe we should rebrand that to the preseason. This is one of the big goals of this period of training, is building a bigger base. And because it's not super specific, we can build our endurance in a bit more of a general way. So what I plan to do is use the bikes, the stationary bikes at the gym, and I'm gonna get a trainer so that I can put my road bike on a trainer at home and get in some easy zone 2 exercise in the evenings when I'm probably not gonna make it out to the gym, but I can hop on the bike for say 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes. I also plan to do some really long rides on the trainer as well. Just put on a movie, zone out, and just get a really high volume of zone 2 running. Now, while I'm really excited about all this cross training that I'm planning to build my base this winter, there is a problem with injuries. Now, in the past, I used to just layer on as much cross training as I possibly could. And sure, the injury risk with things like cycling and hiking and pool running or the elliptical or whatever form of cross training you're gonna do, of course, these are much lower risk for injuries than running. They are typically not impact sports, nor do they have the same power element, the same plyometric nature to them that running does. But with that said, there is still an amount of stress that comes with a lot of cross training. And I know for me, I've done a fair amount of cycling back in the day, and I know that if I do a lot of cycling, it's not the cycling that's going to get me injured, but it is just the overall fatigue that I'm gonna be carrying into my running. So the cross training fatigue can negatively impact your running to a certain degree. I might be more tired for a workout. I might be slightly more fatigued for a long run. That may compromise my form. I may have more inefficient movement patterns. Next thing you know, I have a little bit of a niggle because I'm so tired from all the cross training that I'm doing. Now, I'm gonna be measuring this. Now, in the past, I didn't really have any idea to track and measure these things, but now I do. I'm gonna be uploading all of my runs and cross-training activities to the COROS training hub. And from that platform, I'm gonna be able to calculate the training load of all that cross-training. It's actually an easy score that is given for every type of physical activity that you do. And you can track your overall activity level, your training load from week to week. And even though cross-training is not running, there is a training load associated with it, and that is going to be included in my overall weekly training load. I have partnered with COROS to make this video because I absolutely love their products.
I've actually been using their products well before our partnership. I'd probably be talking about them anyway, but I've been using the COROS Apex 2 Pro. One of the reasons why I love this watch is, number one, the GPS technology has been updated. All the areas in Denver where my old watch would just drop out, my overall mile pace would get 2 minutes per mile slower. You know, this happens, you're in the city, you're in a certain area where there's not a lot of satellite coverage. I've noticed that with the Apex 2 Pro, I don't have any of that anymore. So I can run next to the Science Museum in City Park here in Denver, and my pace stays consistent even though I'm right next to a pretty big building. So thanks COROS for this amazing technology. The other reason why I love it, it's very practical. This isn't just a running watch, it's a multi-sport watch. So it doesn't matter if I'm in the gym, it doesn't matter if I'm going on a hike or if I'm cycling, I'm gonna be able to track my activity with my COROS watch, and I'm gonna be using the COROS armband heart rate monitor as well to make sure that my heart rate stays in the appropriate zone based on whatever cross training I'm doing. All of this is going to be included in the overall training load of my training, thanks to COROS. And now I am going to accurately be able to predict my injury risk in case that training load gets a little too high from week to week. Here's the back end of the COROS training hub, and you can see how the hike I went on August 26th of this year, it was a little over 6 miles, and I remember this hike. It was a high altitude, fairly substantial elevation gain type of hike. Not a hike I brought my kids on. And my average heart rate was 111 beats per minute. And you can see how the training load of this hike is 155. This is actually really similar to an 8-mile run that I did only 4 days later. So you can see how, without accurately taking in the overall stress load or training load of any form of cross training that you're doing, you're not quite getting an accurate picture of your total workload during the week. If you struggle with injuries or if you want to stay healthy, understanding that training load is going to be really important. And here on July 25th, you can see that I went for about a 25-mile bike ride, averaging a little over 15 miles per hour with an average heart rate of 146 beats per minute. The training load on this ride was more than a lot of the runs that I did that week. You have to really go back and try to actively find a run with a higher training load. And that's because on the bike, you can really get your heart rate up and keep it elevated for a fairly long period of time without any of the impact of running. That is both a good thing, but we also don't want to risk overtraining by having our training be too intense, especially during the base phase of training. So no matter if you're hiking or you're biking, let's make sure that our heart rate is reasonable and we're not doing too much high intensity work during that base phase of training. Knowing your training load can definitely help you with this. So runners, I hope you are able to build an enormous base of endurance this winter. And I hope you follow along as I try to build my own base of endurance as well. And if you're gonna be using a lot of cross training, I think it's very valuable for injury prone runners and even those runners who may not be injury prone, but just want a bigger base. You can always pretty safely add cross training to your schedule. But I am really glad that the training load feature in COROS paired with my multi-sport watch with the Apex 2 Pro, I'm gonna be much more able to accurately measure my overall training load and the stress that I'm experiencing. So thank you COROS, my partner on this video, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions about base building, the off season, pre-season, how to build a bigger base or use cross training more strategically, leave them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer every one.